A pair of environmental protesters glued their hands to the frame of a Vincent van Gogh painting at a London art gallery.
The duo is part of a group that wants a halt to all new British fossil fuel projects. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I'm CJ Hero.
And I'm Nina Richielago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. And now for the headlines. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. caps day one by placing career diplomat Enrique Manalo at the helm of DFA. 3 weeks before the opening of the 19th Congress, lawmaker pushes to amend the Constitution with a proposal to change the president's term limit. COVID-19 positivity rates in 4 regions of the Philippines surpassed the WHO threshold. Russia makes a move to help alleviate the global food crisis. And 2 climate activists glue themselves to the frame of a Vincent van Gogh painting at a UK gallery. President Ferdinand Marcos busied himself on his first day in office. He attended the 75th founding anniversary of the Philippine Air Force held in Clark, Pampanga. Eden Santos reports.
A day after his inauguration, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. started his first day in office with a series of engagements. He was also the special guest on the 75th anniversary celebration of the Philippine Air Force, with the team continue flying towards stronger and reliable Air Force for God, country, and the Filipino. The president was given arrival honors despite the pouring rain.
Once again, the 17th President of the Republic of the Philippines and Commander-in-Chief, Armed Forces of the Philippines.
As their Commander-in-Chief, President Marcos said he will ensure the welfare of the officers and personnel.
First and foremost, I think it is only appropriate that one of my first acts as President is to join you at this momentous 75th year anniversary of our very own, the Philippine Air Force. I congratulate the entire team, the brave, courageous men and women, officers of the Philippine Air Force, as commanded by Lieutenant General Connor Anthony D. Canlas. Your loyalty and commitment and love of country are definitely worth emulation for not only those in the military, but of all citizens of the Philippines. As we fly and aim high for our country and people, given the resounding and historical mandate that this administration has received, it is a most opportune time. Today's event is perfect time to recognize our nation's continued enhancement in air strength over the years, the air capability that we have used and continue to employ in our national effort towards nationhood.
President Marcos' foreign policy is to be friends with everybody and enemies with no one. However, he said that the Philippines would be ready to defend its sovereignty. For his part, Air Force Commander Lieutenant General Connor Anthony Canlas vowed that the Air Force would remain faithful in their duty for the country and its people.
I am deeply honored to be here this afternoon to welcome you all as we celebrate the 75th anniversary of the Philippine Air Force. I thank you for sharing this milestone with us. The 75th year signifies the diamond anniversary, quite fitting as this is symbolic of what the Philippine Air Force stands for: brilliance, resiliency, and quality that endures through many years. Indeed, the men and women of the Philippine Air Force embody the qualities of a diamond. They have been forced under pressure, and they shine with their heroism, patriotic duty during the nation's most crucial moments, and their strength is unbreakable.
Eden Santos reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has appointed seasoned career diplomat Enrique Manalo as Foreign Affairs Secretary. Manalo will be replacing Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. Manalo, who is the country's permanent representative to the United Nations, immediately flew from New York and took his oath of office before Marcos this morning. He served as acting Foreign Affairs Secretary from March 9 to 17 or May 17, 2017, when the Commission on Appointments bypassed Secretary Perfecto Yasay. Manalo is an experienced diplomat who has dealt with diplomatic crises, including the South China Sea issue, with impressive calmness. Aside from his assignment to missions abroad, Manalo also worked as Undersecretary for Policy in 2016, a position he also held from August 2007 to February 2010.
The first family will reside at Bahay Pangarap across the Pasig River facing Malacanang Palace. This was confirmed in a television interview by Philippine Ambassador to the U.S., Jose Manuel Babes Romualdez, who is a second cousin of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Bahay Pangarap is a rest house inside the 19-hectare Malacanang Park, which also houses the headquarters of the Presidential Security Group. It was the official residence of then-Presidents Benigno Noynoy Aquino and Rodrigo Duterte. President Marcos earlier said they would not use the rooms they had when he was young, since those were already converted as part of the Malacanang Museum.
Chinese President Xi Jinping has assured President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. of China's commitment to strengthening its relations with the Philippines. Moira Encina reports.
Chinese President Xi Jinping sent a congratulatory message to President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. on his inauguration as the 17th President of the Philippines. In a letter sent to Marcos, Xi guarantees that he is ready to work with Marcos and his government to further strengthen the ties between China and the Philippines. In particular, he mentioned developing a strategic and long-term perspective and writing a great chapter on the China-Philippines friendship for the new era, so as to benefit the two countries and their peoples. In a short meeting between Chinese Vice President Wang Jishan and President Marcos after yesterday's inauguration, he laid down China's four-point proposal for the development of bilateral ties between the Philippines and China. One is a proposal to resolve the two countries' differences and maintain peace in South China Sea. The Chinese official also urges the Philippines to pursue international equality and justice and work together to push for the peace and progress of Asia. China is hopeful that the new administration will continue nurturing the growing friendship and cooperation between the two countries. Moira Encina, reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
A day after the inauguration of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., a lawmaker filed a resolution seeking to amend the 1987 Constitution. Vic Somintak has the details.
Nearly 3 weeks before the formal opening of the 19th Congress, a resolution seeking to change the term of office of the President has been revived in the House of Representatives. Resolution number 1 seeks to shorten the said term to 5 years and allow presidential re-election. In his resolution, Pampanga 3rd District Representative Aurelio Gonzalez proposes that Congress should convene as a Constituent Assembly to amend the Constitution. Under the 1987 Constitution, the President is entitled to a 6-year term without re-election. But Gonzales argues that that's not enough to finish program amid pandemic recovery and global economic concerns. He says the clear majority mandate that Marcos and Vice President Sara Duterte received in the last elections is a go signal from the citizens to discuss charter change. Gonzales' proposal also states that the people will have to vote for a president and a vice president from the same party. He also seeks to change the term of office of senators, members of the House of Representatives, and local officials. In previous years, amendments to the 1987 Constitution have been pushed numerous times but have failed because of term limits concern. Vic Sumintak reporting for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Former President Rodrigo Duterte takes his rest in his hometown Davao City after his 6-year presidency. Take a look. The president's former aide and close friend, Senator Christopher Bongo, says Duterte, even at his age, did his job relentlessly. Go says Duterte never rested when he was president because of the many tasks he had. The senator thanked Duterte for his service to the Filipino people. After leaving Malacanang yesterday, the former president passed by a mall in Makati before proceeding to Davao City.
Kailangan niya magpahinga. A well-deserved rest po mula sa trabaho. Napakahirap po ako. Nakita ko talaga yung hirap ng trabaho in the last 6 years. Sabi ko nga, pagkatapos ng termino niya ngayon, nakahinga na rin po ako. Dahil isa rin po ako sa halos walang pahinga talaga sa pagsiservisyo, pagkatrabaho. Yan po pinangako ko sa kanya. Kahit na naging senator po ako, tinutulungan ko pa rin po siya. Dahil isa naman po ang aming layunin, ang pagsiservisyo po sa ating kapwa Pilipino. Makakapahinga na rin siya, o well-deserved rest. Salamat Mr. President. Salamat PRRD sa iyong serbisyo para sa ating bayan. Kitang-kita niyo naman po, napakainit ng pagtanggap ng 2016, napakainit po ng paghatid sa kanya ng taong bayan. Kakaiba po, nakakapangilabot man, pero kakaiba talaga ang pakiramdam ng pasasalamat ng taong bayan sa ginawa ni Pangulong Duterte.
The appointment of Christopher Pastrana as General Manager of the Philippine Ports Authority is now in question. In a report, Pastrana's company owes over 132 million pesos to the Department of Transportation for its 2 vessels, Maharlika 1 and 2. In a vlog, broadcaster Anthony Taberna read a portion of DOTR's letter to Pastrana's Phil Harbor Ferries and Port Services, demanding the company to pay its unpaid monthly amortization and penalty charges amounting to 132,109,572 pesos and 79 centavos. The company acknowledged DOTR's letter and said it has every intention to pay its obligations pending the outcome of its ongoing dispute with DOTR in the Mandaluyong Regional Trial Court. In a separate vlog post, RJ Nieto, or Thinking Pinoy, says that based on his inside information from the screening committee of the Marcos camp, Pastrana's CV was not vetted by the screening team. As PPA GM, Pastrana will end up regulating not only the businesses owned by him, but also those of his competitors. The conflict of interest puts his appointment aside from questions about his qualifications for the post.
Tropical storm Doming has further intensified as it moves northward over the Philippine Sea. According to the Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration, or PAGASA, the center of Doming was estimated at 975 kilometers east of extreme northern Luzon. It is packing maximum sustained winds of 75 kilometers per hour near the center and a gustiness of up to 90 kilometers per hour. While it is not directly affecting the archipelago at this time, Domeng and severe tropical storm Chaba, which is outside the Philippine area of responsibility, both enhance the southwest monsoon. The Weather Bureau said it will bring occasionally gusty conditions over extreme northern Luzon, the northern and western portions of Luzon, and the western portion of Visayas. Tropical storm Domeng is forecast to gradually accelerate northward or north-northwestward tonight through early morning. It is then expected to move northwestward for the remainder of tomorrow, exiting the PAR in the afternoon. Next on Mata ng Agila International. DOH Advisory Panel backs COVID-19 vaccine rollout for kids under 5. Amid economic crisis, Sri Lanka suspends all sales of fuel for non-essential vehicles. More stories from around the globe when Mata ng Agila International returns.
I am Ria Atayde at napakasarap kumain at makibanding dito sa Lutong Daza.
Malapit na! Ngayong Sabado, alas 10 ng umaga. Kita-kits!
Kung sawa ka na sa kanin at ulam, subukan nyo tong mga sandwich recipes namin.
Sasamahan tayo ng blooming na si Ria Atayde
sa paggawa ng cheese pimiento, mini burgers,
crispy chicken sandwich na may kasama pang coleslaw at tuna tarragon macaroni. Kakaiba at siguradong matutuwa ang pamilya ninyo.
Takot eh! Kita-kits sa Lutong Daza.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. The COVID positivity rates in Metro Manila and 3 other regions surpassed the threshold set by the World Health Organization. Based on the data from the Department of Health, the national positivity rate, or the percentage of infected people out of all tested, increased to 6% from last week's 4.1%. Metro Manila's positivity rate climbed to 8.2% from 5.8%. Outside the National Capital Region, 3 regions with positivity rates exceeding 5% were Calabarzon with 7%, Mimaropa with 6.5 or 6.6%, and the Western Visayas with 6.4%. In a separate report, the Octa Research Group identified Metro Manila, Cavite, Rizal, Laguna, Pampanga, Iloilo, Batangas, and Benguet with increased positivity rates. From June 25 to July 1st, the country recorded 6,399 new cases, 48% of which came from the National Capital Region.
Vaccine experts believe it's time to give COVID jabs to children younger than 5 years old. The reason? Let's find out from Madeline Villar Moratillo.
Vaccine expert panel head Dr. Nina Gloriani is in favor of vaccinating toddlers under 5 years old against COVID-19. She explains that after allowing children 5 years old and above to get their vaccine jabs, the younger ones became the most vulnerable to the virus.
Lahat lang yan, minomonitor namin. So, para sa kompletong protection sa lahat, ay maganda ang mabigyan din natin ng mga bata. Data from abroad, nagpapakita na yung efficacy, safety, immunogenicity at efficacy nitong mga bakuna, especially yung Pfizer and Moderna, kasi sila may data, sa 6 months to less than 5 years old ay maganda. Ang safety features nila ay pareho lang doon sa nakita sa mga medyo may edad. Ang kanilang comparison ay yung 17 above, 16 to 25 years old. Ang immunogenicity, meaning yung pag-generate ng immunity ng mga bata ay kasing taas, even as a little, slightly higher than yung sa 16 to 25 years old. At ang efficacy is around 80%.
Aside from this, Gloriani says they have recommended including seafarers and overseas Philippine workers in the rollout of second booster jobs. According to them, those in the A3 category are those taking maintenance medicines but are not included in the list of immunocompromised individuals should also be given the same treatment. She says that VEP also agrees with the suggestion of the Health Department to enlist individuals who are 50 years old and above for the administration of second booster shots. Madeline Villar-Moratillo reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
During his press conference at the NATO summit in Madrid, U.S. President Joe Biden denounced Russia for causing the rise in gas prices and creating the food crisis by not allowing grain out of Ukraine.
Ukraine has already dealt a severe blow to Russia. Russia, in fact, has already lost its international standing. The reason why gas prices are up is because of Russia. Russia. The reason why the food crisis exists is because of Russia. Russia not allowing grain to get out of Ukraine.
The war is causing dangerous disruptions to global food supplies, but Biden spurned any suggestion of easing off with the war. The U.S. president stressed in his press conference Russia was already badly damaged and would never be allowed to win.
Russian troops have been withdrawn from Ukraine's Snake Island, according to an announcement of the Russian Defense Ministry. The move was described as a goodwill gesture meant to alleviate concerns over Russia possibly blocking attempts to haul grain out of Ukraine. Colonel General Igor Konashenkov, the spokesman for the ministry, asserts that Moscow just demonstrated to the international community that the Russian Federation does not hinder UN efforts to organize a humanitarian corridor and ship agricultural products from Ukraine. Western nations in Ukraine have been accusing Russia of blocking seaborne exports from Kyiv-controlled ports like Odessa, claiming that it was a major factor in the global hike in food prices.
Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has reportedly written to Vladimir Putin seeking to strike a deal regarding oil supplies. Rajapaksa's request to Putin comes as Sri Lanka battles an all-out economic crisis and a fuel shortage in the island nation. According to RT News, the two leaders are expected to work out the details of any possible agreement in an upcoming phone conversation. Sri Lanka's oil supplies are expected to run out in early July, with the nation's debts prohibiting it from paying for more fuel in a conventional manner.
It's tough to get around Sri Lanka these days. The roads are empty, the trains are overcrowded. That's because the Sri Lankan government has halted all fuel sales for the next 2 weeks, except for essential services. That is forcing people in the capital of Colombo to take the train. Fuel supplies have almost run out, with barely enough to last one more day. Public transit has ground to a halt. And private sector companies have been told to allow their employees to work from home as much as possible. The South Asian nation is facing its worst economic meltdown since gaining independence from Britain in 1948.
Business is not a bed of roses for Bulgaria's rose oil makers these days. A heat wave has slashed this year's harvest of rose petals. Labor is hard to find, and the global surge in energy prices has affected production. Dubbed liquid gold, rose oil is a vital ingredient in perfumes made by the world's top luxury brands such as Christian Dior, Estée Lauder, and Chanel. Its fixative qualities help blend other ingredients and prolong the scent on the skin. In 2021, production costs for rose oil stood at around $6,300 or 347,000 pesos per kilo, but these have surged by as much as 40% this year. The price of petals alone doubled since last year, according to producers. Bulgaria is the world's top rose oil maker, along with Turkey. Nearly 100% of the oil it produces is exported to France, Germany, Switzerland, the United States, China, Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan tells Sweden and Finland that he could still block their drives to join NATO if they fail to implement the new deal with Ankara.
Daha önce onlar 60 teröristin iadesi konusunda bazı müzakerelerde idiler. Şimdi ise bunu 73'e çıkardılar. Bu müzakereler esnasında bakalım bu verdikleri sözü yerine getirecekler mi? Biz de takipçisi olduk.
His remarks come less than 48 hours after the agreement between the three countries. Speaking to the press at the close of the NATO summit in Madrid, he also recalled that there were negotiations with Sweden on the extradition of 60 terrorists. But now, the number has increased to 73 during the negotiations. If Sweden keep their promise, Erdogan said they will also adhere to their talks.
After months of negotiations, the UN Security Council urges Iran to de-escalate and agree to the nuclear deal, with the UK's permanent representative adding that there will not be a better one.
Iran should urgently take this deal. There will not be a better one. And if a deal is not struck, then Iran's nuclear escalation will cause the JCPOA to collapse.
We share concerns expressed by others regarding Iran's ongoing ballistic missile and space launch activity. We urge Iran to reconsider actions that undermine trust, which is essential for the JCPOA and Resolution 2231.
However, the U.S. State Department said the EU brokered proximity talks in the Qatari capital Doha had concluded late with no progress made. Thomas Zaneisen, deputy representative of Germany to the UN, explained that Iran had not seized the occasion but had insisted once again on demands that go well beyond the scope of the JCPOA. But Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdollahian said he believed that talks had been positive and a deal could still be reached, adding that Iran is determined to continue negotiating until a realistic agreement is reached. The talks aim to bring the U.S. back into a 2015 deal by lifting the sweeping economic sanctions the Trump administration imposed in exchange for Iran's return to full compliance with its core nuclear limits.
The U.S. Supreme Court has made history by swearing in its first black female justice. Ketanji Brown Jackson has taken oath as an Associate Justice on the High Court. Jackson only spoke to say her oath during Thursday's brief ceremony. While her confirmation is a milestone, it won't change the 6-3 conservative majority on the court. 4 justices on the 9-member court are now women. That makes it the most diverse bench in history. Up next, Chinese President Xi Jinping hails China's rule on the 25th anniversary of Hong Kong's handover. The world's biggest chocolate plant contaminated with salmonella. And India takes a step forward in waste management. How? Find out later when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Sa lutong dasa.
May iba naman tayo. Kung sawa ka na sa kanin at ulam, subukan nyo tong mga sandwich recipes namin.
Sasamahan tayo ng blooming na si Ria at Taide
sa paggawa ng cheese pimiento, mini burgers,
crispy chicken sandwich na may kasama pang coleslaw at tuna tarragon macaroni. Kakaiba at siguradong matutuwa ang pamilya ninyo.
Takot eh! Kita-kits sa lutong dasa.
Pilipinas at saan mang panig ng mundo, ihanda na ang shopping list nyo dahil narito na ang online shopping show kung saan ang hanap nyo, meron dito. Narito na ang Shopping All the Way with Jojo A. Eat na hit? We have it! May sayawan, tawanan, pati naiyakan. Pati pets nyo mag-i-enjoy dito. But wait, there's more. Dahil pati celebrity sellers, makikipag-online selling din. At hindi lang yan, dahil may chance kayong makabili ng collectible items mula sa inyong mga paboritong artista. Kaya what are you waiting for? Add to cart na! Shopping All the Way with Jojo A. Opening soon sa Net 25.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. 35,000 explosives have been dismantled in the Mariupol state as the Russian Ministry of Emergency Situations and the Donetsk People's Republic start clearing and reconstructing the port city. Igor Shtanov of RT News reports.
The Donetsk authorities, with the support of Russia, are doing everything to erase scenes of destruction from Mariupol residents' memories. After Mariupol authorities calculated the scale of destruction in the city after the fighting, the Russian Ministry of Emergency Situations, in cooperation with the Donetsk People's Republic, has begun to dismantle buildings that cannot be restored. This is necessary to help accelerate the city's reconstruction.
We conducted a removal of debris and then carried out a survey of floors and roofs to search for explosive objects and then transferred any found to authorities for disposal.
The Ukrainian army is fighting with all the weapons it has, even Soviet-made, some of which were left in residential buildings.
We are at the site where the Air Mobile Group has been walking. This is what was previously discovered under the rubble. Further digging is underway. We'll continue to examine the buildings and no doubt find more ammunition.
Residents of these houses are returning to pick up what is left of their property, while emergency workers help them find their important documents and belongings.
Congo has reopened its borders with Rwanda and Burundi, easing diplomatic tensions. But Congolese people are concerned about the spread of terrorism in the region. RT News' local correspondent Gilan Balume reports.
Terrorism is one of the main concerns
For the people here in Goma, in Democratic Republic of Congo, it affects hunger, safety, and education. In fact, all the aspects of their lives.
We are concerned about the M23 terrorist group because it spreads the fake promise that it will liberate the Congolese people. We don't want the same situation in Goma.
M23 commits atrocities and causes massive population displacement in our country. And the victims are always Congolese people.
M23 is supported by countries such as Uganda and Rwanda. The movement is now categorized as a terrorist organization, and we will defend our territory.
The March 23 movement, known as M23, is the biggest terrorist threat in this region. It wants to destabilize and control areas rich in mineral resources and launch almost daily attacks on the Kinshasa's government. Early June, the M23 shelled on military position, killing 2 soldiers and injuring 5. Later, it captured the city of Bunagana, 60 kilometers northeast of Goma, marking a dramatic escalation in tension. The government lacks sufficient manpower and resources to push the rebel back and police the entire country. Kinshasa needs the help of its neighbors in fighting the terrorists and welcomes recent Kenya's announcement that is deploying the regional forces to assist it. But the government doesn't want Rwanda to be the part of it. A recent United Nations report saying that the M23 are planning to seize the business district in Goma. If they do, the DRC may collapse because this is extremely important trade hub. The repercussions will be felt far beyond its.
Chinese President Xi Jinping visited Hong Kong to mark the 25th anniversary of its return to China. It's his first visit since the business hub's democracy movement was crushed. Xi's trip is a chance for the Chinese Communist Party to showcase its control of Hong Kong after huge pro-democracy protests engulfed the city in 2019. He says Hong Kong has been reborn of fire and emerged with robust vitality. Security was tight during his visit. A number of roads were closed and the city banned the flying of drones. A rail station was also closed, as were a number of other venues in the city. Authorities moved to eliminate any potential source of embarrassment during Xi's visit. In the past week, at least 9 arrests have been made.
China slammed NATO's apparent plans to establish an Asian version of the alliance, suggesting NATO should stop searching for imaginary enemies. Chinese UN envoy Zhang Jun repeated Beijing's opposition to NATO's ramped-up involvement in the Indo-Pacific region at the UN Security Council meeting. He also advised NATO not to use the Ukraine crisis as an excuse to stoke worldwide confrontation. Zhang gave weight to the issue, saying that the long-outdated Cold War script must never be reenacted in the Asia-Pacific.
Production in the world's biggest chocolate plant in Vise, Belgium, has been stopped after salmonella was found in its products. That manufactures Kinder chocolates in southern Belgium.
Warsaw announced the completion of its $407 million, 186-kilometer border wall designed to keep out asylum seekers traveling from Belarus amid accusations of harsh double standards from human rights groups. One Polish NGO boss said that if one person gives a lift to a refugee at the Ukrainian border, he is a hero. But doing such act at the Belarus border will make a person a smuggler and could end up in jail for 8 years. At least 20 migrants are reported to have perished in freezing conditions around the border while Poland declared a state of emergency to block access for journalists and rights workers. A potential tropical cyclone is moving on towards the Caribbean coasts of Nicaragua and Costa Rica in Central America, where it could hit with rain, winds, and floods. The phenomenon, with maximum winds of 65 kilometers per hour and a movement of 31 kilometers per hour, is located about 970 kilometers east of Bluefield's coast of Nicaragua. The National Hurricane Center of the United States said that the phenomenon has not strengthened, but it is still expected to become a tropical storm. Nicaragua accelerated protection plans on the Caribbean coast and the islands of Corn Island and Little Corn Island, where fishermen moved their boats inland. The government has mobilized more than 1,000 members of rescue brigades. Costa Rican President Rodrigo Chavez said they have evacuated about 900 people from 13 communities that would be in the path of the storm. Classes were also suspended as the twin nation battles the tropical storm.
India has banned the use of single-use plastics in a bid to tackle waste, which chokes rivers and poisons wildlife. India generates around 4 million tons of plastic waste per year, about a third of which is not recycled and ends up in waterways and landfills that regularly catch fire, exacerbating air pollution. Experts say the ban will likely cause temporary job losses, but will also provide scope for alternative industries to boom. The new ban covers the production, import, and sale of ubiquitous objects like straws and cups made of plastic, as well as wrapping on cigarette packets. Exempt for now are plastic bags below a certain thickness and so-called multi-layered packaging. Authorities have promised to crack down hard after the ban came into effect. Awaiting violators is a 5-year jail sentence or a maximum fine of 100,000 rupees, which is equivalent to about 70,000 pesos. Coming right up, Americans face potential July 4th travel problems. Pinterest CEO steps down, handing over the reins to a Google executive. And UK climate activists glue hands to a Vincent van Gogh painting at a London museum. All these and more when Madanang Agila International returns.
This portion is brought to you.
It's not easy to establish a food business that will eventually be a household name in the Philippines. But it's not impossible. After all, the ingredients to a successful business are free: curiosity, market research, risk-taking, innovation, and originality, to name a few. Join us as we learn from the man behind the French baker, the Chatime franchise in the Philippines, and Pinoy Tasty, Professor John Lu Koa.
Yung bakery business, napakahirap. It's a one-day work to make a loaf bread. So when we deliver it to you, it's always fresh and waiting for you to buy it just at the price that gives us enough incentive to stay into business. Hindi naman kami profiteering dahil lahat ng cost ay tumataas. Gusto lang namin makontinue lang yung what we love to do best.
All these in this episode of Open for Business.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos. Every Sunday, 9 p.m.
Nasa ka ba? Magpakita ka nga! Hindi ako magpapakita sa'yo! Then wag! Ako, si Contraman!
Tama kayo! Maghaharap nga si Captain Kutob at Contraman! At maghaharap din sa Do or Die Championship ang Team Cosme at Team Puruntong. Ngayong Monday na yan, alas 8 ng gabi sa Net 25. Okay!
We are back here on Mata ng Agila International. Americans planning to fly on the July 4th holiday weekend may find their travel turning into a nightmare. Maylene Dineros Corpus in LA explains why and offers a few tips to avoid disaster.
Here are some of the things travelers face: higher ticket prices, delays, and flight cancellations. Domestic ticket prices average about $450. That's 45% more expensive than in pre-pandemic days. And if we can learn anything from recent history, it's that there is no guarantee your flight is going to leave the ground. On the combined Father's Day and Juneteenth federal holiday, more than 35,000 flights were either canceled or delayed. And be sure to have patience. That will help you cope with the inevitable lineups at security and any problems that might arise. Maylene Dineros Corpus, Mata ng Agila International, Los Angeles, California. Trusted, connected, on point.
Pinterest announced that longtime Chief Executive Officer Ben Silbermann would step down, handing over the reins of the social media platform to Google Commerce Executive Bill Reddy. The news sent the company's shares 9% higher in extended trading and highlighted a shift in focus at Pinterest from its advertising-based business model to e-commerce initiatives. Reddy's appointment brings to an end Silbermann's 12-year tenure as CEO, which began when he co-founded Pinterest in 2010. The platform has grown rapidly since then and now has more than 430 million monthly active users. Reddy will receive an annual salary of $400,000 and be eligible for a stock option award to buy about 8.6 million Class A shares. Scheduled to run from June 27th to July 10th, this year's Wimbledon continues to unfold. Here's our UK correspondent, Keith Dimabuyu, for the biggest news of Day 4.
Rafael Nadal overcame another mid-match lapse to defeat Lithuania's Ricardas Brankis in 4 sets and reached the Wimbledon third round for the 11th time on Thursday. Two-time champion Nadal triumphed 6-4. 6-4, 4-6, and 6-3 to see off his 106th ranked opponent. The Spaniard, who is bidding to add the Wimbledon title to his Australian and French Open victories, will tackle Italy's Lorenzo Sonego for a place in the last 16. Every day is a challenge, said Nadal, who is playing Wimbledon for the first time since making the semi-finals in 2019. The 36-year-old was in control against Brankis until he dropped the third set, just as he did in his opener against Francisco Carandulo. However, he steadied the ship, racing into a 3-love lead in the fourth set before play was held up for the center court roof to close. When the match resumed, he swept to victory, finishing with a flourish by hitting his 13th ace. From the United Kingdom, I am Keith Dimabuyu for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
For the women's action at Wimbledon, Katie Boulter snatched the biggest win of her career as she beat Karolina Pliskova on center court to reach the third round of a Grand Slam for the first time. Women's top seed Iga Swiatek, on the other hand, survived a stumble to win her 37th match on the spin. The Denver Nuggets show just how much they value Nikola Jokic. The team offered the two-time defending NBA Most Valuable Player a 5-year, $264 million extension. The Supermax contract is the biggest in NBA league history. Aside from the mammoth deal, the Serbian basketball star said that he really likes the organization and the people who work for the Denver Nuggets. Two climate activists have glued themselves to the frame of a Vincent van Gogh painting at the Courtauld Gallery in London. The pair belongs to the group called Just Stop Oil, a movement campaigning against fossil fuels. They claim that past protests have not worked. They say they had no choice but to take the action they did Thursday to get the government's attention. They want the British government to end all new fossil fuel projects, and they say art institutions should join in civil resistance.
Here's what happened today, July 1 in history. In 1961, Diana, Princess of Wales, was born in Norfolk, England. She was the mother of the heir second in line to the British throne, Prince William, Duke of Cambridge, and Prince Harry. Her compassion, personal warmth, humility, and accessibility earned her the moniker the People's Princess. In 1978, Filipino singer Haji Alejandro won the Best Singer Award at the Seoul International Song Festival. He sang Ryan Cayabyab's composition, Kay Ganda ng Ating Musika. It was the first time the Philippines won a top international award in a song fest. And in 1979, Sony began selling its Walkman, a portable cassette player. The Walkman became an international sensation, changing the way people listen to music.
Now, before we conclude tonight's broadcast and welcome the weekend, here's a quote from Paula Jane Radcliffe, a former British long-distance runner. You can be strong and true to yourself without being rude or loud.
Yeah, exactly. There's a way to stress a point or to say your opinion without having to strike an argument or end up, in a heated discussion.
We saw that a lot during this election,
we did, didn't we?
I guess the secret is that we do not impose our beliefs on others, and we have to respect they also have their own beliefs.
Respect is the main thing.
And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels, especially this weekend. I am CJ Hero.
And I'm Nina Richie Alago Flores, wishing everyone a happy weekend. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.